Okay, so today we are taking a look at the wave of Suicide Squad figures by McFarlane Toys, and just looking at them right now, I'm mildly impressed. Some of them look a lot better than I thought they would, but we'll see if that changed once they're out of the box. I'm a huge fan of James Gunn, so when I heard he was doing the movie, I was really excited for it. I was lucky enough to see a pre-screening of it, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was very good. There's a couple things I didn't like, but overall, I enjoyed it. I thought it was a really good movie, so I was excited to get a hold of these figures. They've been somewhat difficult to find. I've seen more of the variations in store, actually. Like, there's variations of unmasked Bloodsport and unmasked Peacemaker, and I've seen a lot of the Peacemaker in stores. But they were easy enough to get online, and I ended up pre-ordering them, I think, through Walmart, so they weren't very difficult to track down. Now, maybe so, but in the initial run, not so much. But with the movie out on DVD now, I thought it'd be a good enough time to take a look at them, now that I finally got to them. So let's take a look and see if maybe I shouldn't get too attached to these action figures beforehand. Now, as I mentioned in the opening part, there are some variations of these figures that are store exclusives. I believe Walmart had a version of King Shark that was already built. He came with a different set of shorts, some half-eaten limbs, and a bloodied mouth. I believe Target had an unmasked Peacemaker, and then somebody had an unmasked Bloodsport. I'm not sure which. Now, why didn't I get those, you ask? Well, the two unmasked versions are just not very good likenesses. They don't look like John Cena. They don't look like Idris Elba. They're very poor. The John Cena one wasn't too bad when I looked at it, but I kind of just like him more with the mask on. And if the Bloodsport had had any resemblance to Idris Elba, then I probably would have gotten it, but it didn't, so I passed on it. And as for the King Shark variant, I tried to get that one. I've kept an eye out in the stores, never seen it on the shelves, and then it went online for a little bit, and before I decided I wanted to get to it, it was already gone. So, passed on that unwillingly. But I've got the main wave, which altogether is not terrible. It does have a few iffy problems, though. So let's start with kind of the weakest of the bunch is Bloodsport, just because he's kind of a boring toy without his guns. The paint apps, though well done, are not the correct color. They're too blood orange instead of gold like he's seen in the movie and on the trading card included with the figure. So with just these two colors on the figure, he's kind of boring to look at and he's not overly exciting. So that just makes him the weakest of the bunch. If you like the character, then it's great that you'll have him. I mean, maybe they'll do a more color correct version of him down the line, but until then, this is what we got. And since the movie kind of did okay, I'm not really sure if we'll get another wave of these, which is kind of disappointing. It'd be great to have like Rick Flag and Boomerang and, a few others. The other one that's kind of the weakest of them, and that's really just because of paint, is the Harley Quinn figure. Her skin tone is just not the right color either. It needs to be more ashy, more pale, more clown paint colored instead of the more normal skin tone that she's given. But otherwise, the tattoos on her look great. There's some great little detail on them for the size that they are. They look fantastic. The likeness to Margot Robbie isn't terrible. It's definitely there. It's a little off though, but it's one of the better McFarlane versions that they've done. And McFarlane does not do great sculpts in the faces. So it's pretty solid and it's a good effort on their part. I'm not disappointed in her. There's also some great little texture on her dress, some wonderful sculpting therein. The javelin's just one solid color. Wish there had been a little bit more details, but all in all, she's not a terrible figure. She's actually really well done. If only they had gotten her skin tone right, she would have been a good 9 out of 10, maybe 8.5 out of 10. Just because the likeness isn't quite there. But otherwise, great solid figure. Now, surprisingly, the figure I thought I would probably like the least ends up being like my second favorite, and that's this Peacemaker figure. Just because, for some reason, when they just have the lower half of the face to work with, they get a pretty great likeness of the actors. Like this looks like John Cena. The eyes might be a little off, but the jawline and the nose is there, and the muscle in the build, and the texture and the shirt and the pants are really well done. He's got great articulation everywhere else. And he looks like a good figure. He's bright and colorful. He's got all those good details and a good solid sculpt that make him surprisingly well done. I really thought this was going to be my least favorite figure, but in hand, he looks really great. So I'm happy to get him. I'm looking forward to his standalone show. Hopefully it's pretty good. We'll see in not too far off. Now, my favorite figure and my favorite character from the movie is Polka Dot Man. And this one is, again, a pretty good solid likeness of him if you keep the goggles on. Just something about McFarlane's lower half sculpts look great, and they just lose you in the eyes, unfortunately. And mine, even though they kind of look like the actor, they are also a little spaced apart, a little weird. But you put those goggles on, and he looks pretty solidly like his on-screen representation. He comes with this polka dot accessory, which I'm not a huge fan of. I'd rather they had done like an attachment on the gauntlet already, and since they already included an extra gauntlet just for a smaller scale, I'm kind of confused why they didn't make it just an attachment on this one that you're supposed to take off and switch out for this anyway. It would have looked a lot better, a lot more solid, instead of this kind of half-hearted attachment that you get instead. But all in all, he's a really good version of the figure. He's got some great colorful dots all over him. There's some texture on his uniform that looks great, and the folds and all the patches and all the different areas on his belts and boots. All in all, the sculpting is really great on this figure, and it's really well done. And like I said, there's enough in the face that he looks a lot like his actor, so I'm not terribly disappointed with this figure. And now we come to our Build-A-Figure, King Shark, which on all the packaging is stated as being their biggest Build-A-Fig yet. And so far it is. I don't think they've released anything so far to date as anything bigger. And he's, again, a really good Build-A-Figure, much like the review of the Dark Father that I did beforehand. He's got a lot of movement to him. He moves in the torso, in the waist. The shorts are actually a separate molded piece from the legs. So his legs can move, a little bit. He can't bend at the knee too much, but you can get a little bit of decent poses out of him. And then he's got articulation in his ankle and on his toes. Mouth opens and shuts, which is great. And then again, his arms fully move too, and so do his hands. So he's got a lot to him, and he definitely is an action figure, not just a big bulky statue. So he was a great character in the movie, and I'm super excited to have him as a Build-A-Figure, and he looks great. He stands maybe not quite the scale as the characters. I want to say he'd be maybe closer to here, so maybe just an inch off in scaling, but otherwise he's great. He's a fantastic building figure. So I'm happy I was able to track down them all and able to build it. I thought the demand for these figures would be a lot higher than they ended up being. But then the movie only did so-so as well. So you might not have too much trouble tracking this down if you've held off or if you didn't see it in theaters and are just now checking it out on DVD or whenever it comes back to HBO Max. So you probably won't have too hard of a time to track these down. If anything, Harley Quinn and Polka Dot Man will probably be the main issues just because they were popular characters, and Harley Quinn is commonly a hard-to-find figure. The other thing you get with all these figures are these nifty little trading cards. You get the nice portrait on the front, and then a little blurb of details on the back as well. And honestly, I'm a pretty big fan of these and the stands. I enjoy getting these little extra bits with the figures. And it's something that McFarlane actually has an up on as far as like Hasbro's Marvel and Star Wars products. So these are nice little pack-ins, and I enjoy getting them. So if you were a fan of the movie, I think this wave of figures is probably worth picking up. I don't see them doing a correction later on with more accurate paint jobs on Bloodsport and Harley Quinn unless DVD sales just skyrocket. So I would get them now while you can, so you don't have to pay some crazy aftermarket prices later. And the Build-A-Figure makes it all worthwhile for sure. So next up on my Lego unboxing, I have the Disney Plus wave of the blind minifigure bags. I managed to track down all of these fairly easily. I thought they were going to be more difficult than they ended up being. So we're going to open these all up and check them out. Until then, stay safe, happy hunting.